I think they're kind of three simple guides to say, do I need this or not? And if, by the way, if none of these ring true for you, then you can just leave the webinar in a minute's time and go, actually, you know what, I'm good. I don't need that. And get back and enjoy the extra hour that you just bought yourself, right? So the first thing is that your strategy sessions don't convert. That you talk to people and the end result is that either they don't say yes, either they say no or they don't say yes, right? So whether they out and out kind of reject you or they just don't say yes, they kind of string you along and it never turns into anything. Either way, you've got this conversion hole. You're doing the activity, you're doing the strategy sessions, but people aren't converting. You know something's wrong, but you don't know exactly where the problem is. You don't know how to pinpoint the exact issue. Does that make sense? So if this is going on for you, if you're kind of talking to people and they're not buying, but you're not sure where you're going wrong, today we're going to go a deep dive into an analysis of kind of what is, what the real cause is and how to fix it. That's what happens if you don't do the conversion audit. If you do, though, here's what happens. We'll have a look at your sales process and we'll figure out exactly what to fix. Right? What's the missing piece? Or what's the piece that is not being worked on optimally? And as soon as we know what that piece is, we'll put that piece in, and bam, it's easy. We don't have to redo everything. You don't have to go and learn another way to sell. We just have to figure out what's the piece that isn't working for you and how do we fix that? Second thing that's going to happen is as soon as we know what piece to fix and we fix it, your conversion rate takes an immediate, permanent boost. It goes from, wherever it is to kind of 20 or 30% more just by diagnosing and fixing the piece that's missing. Number three, your conversion rate takes a boost, which means that prospects say yes and you get more clients. The end result is that you feel like you're back on, you got your mojo back, you're on a win streak. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you 5 keys. I'm going to go through these quite quickly because I want to spend most of our time doing the actual audit, but I want to give you kind of 5 keys to think through the audit well. Okay? So if you take your notes, if you haven't already started, this is the place to start. I'm going to give you these 5 keys real quick, and then we're going to go deep into the audit and figure out what's going wrong and how to fix it specifically. Okay? So here we go. So the first key, not surprisingly, is to audit your performance, is to do a little post-game analysis after your sales call. And you don't have to do this after every sales call, but it's a smart thing to do, especially if you're in the process of getting better. I remember hearing Tony Robbins talk about he got a job with Jim Rohn, delivering public presentations, and he decided that he wanted to be the best, the best closer, and then also the best presenter in Jim Rohn's company. So he decided that the quickest way to get really good was instead of doing like 1 or 2 or 3 presentations a week, is to do 3 a day. And so it would take him a week to get, a month's worth of experience. It'd take him a month to get 90 days worth of experience. It'd take him a quarter to get a year's worth of experience. And within like 2 or 3 months, he was better than everybody else. Not because he was so good, because he was obsessed about doing it and reviewing it. I want you to kind of write down those 2 words, do and review. So what we want to do is we want to audit your performance regularly, just like the sportscasters do after a play in football or basketball or whatever your sport is. They'll kind of rewind it, they'll play it back slowly, they'll draw and commentate which one. You know what? Where did this play begin to go off track? Yeah, what happened here that isn't right? And if we don't do the audit, here's what happens. We just kind of lump through life, bumping along, and we are completely in reaction to what the world gives us, or even what we create for ourselves. We're not in the driver's seat at all. We're in the back seat or the boot/trunk. So we want to audit your performance. We want to go pause, rewind, slow motion replay. What happened? Number 2. When it comes to auditing performance, the second thing that we want to do is we want to look upstream. So often what happens is we think that the sale went wrong at the end. That I couldn't get my magic pills right, or my 3-question loop was kind of wonky. Often the problem shows up downstream at the end of the process, but it began to go off track upstream. I remember hearing Wyatt Woodsmall, who used to coach one of the, he was kind of coaching the all-time most gold medal winning US Olympic diving coach. So this dude coaches Olympic divers, and his students had more wins than more gold medal wins than anyone else. And so he began to kind of dissect Wyatt, began to kind of work with this guy and figure out what's he doing to coach winners. And he figured out that there was one question that this coach would ask when he was reviewing a dive. So the guy would dive in, and he'd either kind of do it live or he'd watch the TV. The question he would ask is, where did this begin to go off track? In other words, what's the earliest moment that I noticed that something wasn't quite right? Because otherwise we'll kind of blame it on the splash landing or that our loop wasn't right. But we want to figure out, was there something that I could have done or should have not done up front which caused it to feel off track at the end? Often, if we kind of check in and we kind of pause long enough to really kind of be honest with ourselves, there's something we did up front that caused the performance to begin to go off track. And what we want to do is we want to identify as far upstream as we can the piece where we began to go off track. Why? Because if we can fix that piece, it has a ripple effect all the way through the rest of the sales process. Yeah? So we want to look upstream and identify the root cause of the performance deviation. Number 3 and 4 are really interesting. Often when we look at a conversion audit, when we kind of try to figure out what went wrong, there are 2 places to look. And the first one is this. The first one is to watch your language. Both the words we use and the tone that we use when we're talking. So for example, I've got a great friend, Ari Galpa, who says, when you're on the phone, you're talking to a prospect, don't be too friendly and enthusiastic. And especially if the first step in our sales process is rapport, friendly and enthusiastic is exactly how most of us would naturally be when we're trying to connect with somebody. He says the only 2 people who are friendly and enthusiastic are friends and family or salespeople. And you're not my friend and you're not my family, so you must be a salesperson. So we want to watch your language, both the tone and the words. So the metaphor I've got for this is during your strategy session, you want to have a really interesting sort of energy about you. You don't want any kind of forward motion, any kind of push, any kind of momentum in your voice. I think about it like, when you get a balloon and you blow it up really, really big, and then you let it go, and it flops around the room and then lands kind of limp on the ground. You want to have the energy that a deflated limp balloon has. And I don't mean you're a drag, but I just mean no forward motion about you, just there. So when it comes to watching your language, we're going to look at your tone, and we're also going to look at the words you use, because there are some words which trigger pushback. If you think about if you've ever been on a sales call with a potential client and you feel like they push back on you, well, just think about that. If somebody pushes back, it's because at some level they feel like you pushed first. So rejection is triggered. And what we want to do is kind of watch our language so that we're not triggering rejection either with the words we use or the tone of voice that we use. And so as we do this conversion audit, we're going to be looking at specific languaging and tone of voice as well. Does that make sense? So we want to watch your language. We're going to look at each of the 9 steps in our strategy session and identify if there's anything we're saying, either the words we use or the way we're saying it, that is triggering rejection or causing the thing to go off track. Number 4, I want you to clean your come from, your intent. So I think kind of at each step in the sales process, we've got an intention, a goal in mind. And so we need to have a really clear, clean come from around this. Remember hearing Brad Sugars actually once say, are you here to, like when you sit down with a potential client, are you there to sign a client or are you there to help a business owner to make more money? Right? So are you there to kind of help somebody or collect a check? So if you take away the evil intent, if you're not there to get money, but you're there to help somebody, get to the truth of whether you're a fit or not. And if you are a fit, of course they're going to sign up with you. And if you're not a fit, of course you won't. If you clean up your come from at each of the steps, each one of these 9 steps in the strategy session grid has a particular intent. And I want to kind of help you get much more in tune with what's the intention for each stage, so you can bring your game from, amateur white belt level to something much more black belt in terms of your ability to influence. What you'll find is if you get the intent right, the words will come naturally. And so you don't have to memorize a whole bunch of scripts, a whole bunch of specific languaging. If you can get the intention right, you'll naturally, the right words will come to you and through you. Make sense? So I just want you to kind of get clear about your come-froms at each one of the stages. What's our intention right here? Number 5. Number 5 is really simple. It's to apply the simplest solution, the simplest fix that there is for this issue. So often, like you might have a conversion problem, and you realize that it's actually just this piece here. And if you can just tweak that bit, bam, then everything gets better. And we don't have to overhaul the whole thing. We don't have to, over-complexify our sales process. We just have to identify what's the one hole that's most holding us back, and just tweak that. Just have to kind of apply the simplest, most basic fix, a little bit of duct tape or a coat hanger antenna, so we can get a really clear signal between us and the prospect. I want you to apply the simplest fix. So as soon as we've reviewed the problem, we've done our instant replay. We've gone as far upstream as we can, and we've looked at both the language we use and the intention we come from. That will help us diagnose the exact issue, and then we just want to apply the simplest fix there is to get the outcome we're after. Make sense?